Hi, welcome to the Online Jewelry Academy. I'm Professor John Ahr and I'm your instructor. In this video, we're going to talk about yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is a naturally occurring mineral substance that's commonly used in ceramics to stain or color glazes. It's got a pretty mustardy yellow color to it, so it makes a pretty glaze. But what do we use it for in jewelry? In jewelry, it's anti-flux. It's the opposite of flux. So when you're soldering on a project that has multiple joints that need to be soldered, this will enable you to continue on beyond the 3 levels that are built into the 3 different melting temperatures of solder. So let me show you how to use it. This container is a large container, obviously, and guess what? It will last forever. So if you're working with a number of other jewelers, you might want to buy one and share, because the average jeweler only needs about that much on their bench whenever they're working with yellow ochre. The point isn't to make a solution out of it. The point is to make mud out of it. It's dirty. What we think of is solder as that little girl in her Sunday best whose mother has told her, "Don't get dirty." And so solder likes to stay where it's clean, where there's a flux path for her to flow along. She doesn't want to go into the mud. So we're just going to mix a little bit of water into this, and you can see it makes like a thick, muddy yellow color. When you work with yellow ochre, you need to designate a special brush for your yellow ochre, because if you use the same brush for yellow ochre and flux, you contaminate your flux and then none of your soldering operations work. So I've got 2 brushes here, and in order to show you what's going to happen, I'm going to do a little test on this copper disc. I've got the disc on a hardened charcoal block on top of my piece of kiln shelf that's supported by a Lazy Susan, and of course I have my ventilation system here to keep us safe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into this yellow ochre, and I'll mix it up a little bit first. And it really does. It looks like mustard. So we're going to paint a little happy face onto this disc. So I'm going to go around the edge, and I'm going to just paint a little face. I want to create areas where I'm going to try to control the movement of solder. Okay, let me just give this little happy face a smile. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so there's my happy face. Now I'm going to put my yellow ochre away. I'll just set it out of the way for now. And I'm going to open up my flux container. Now remember, flux is a water-based vehicle, just like the anti-flux. So before we paint flux onto this surface, we need to dry out the yellow ochre. And I'm going to do it by just turning on my torch, and I'm going to just heat around that piece. And look, it's already dried out. Perfect. It's not going to move. It's not going to blend. So now I can dip into my flux container, and I can paint a little bit of flux into each of these eyes. And I'll paint some into the smile. And you see, because the yellow ochre is already dry, it's not blending or mixing in with my flux. It's just staying put. And if I do get it wet, it just looks wet on that surface. Okay, so now what I can do is I'll reach into my solder container, and I'm just going to use some easy solder here. And we're not going to go crazy. We'll just put one piece of solder in the eye here, and I'll put one in the other eye. Remember, if you want to get more information about any of these processes that I'm doing, you can check back on our channel and find videos related to almost everything that I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm going to put some solder into the smile. And if you haven't already subscribed, if you just look down in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you can see the OJA subscribe button. If you click that, it'll turn you into an OJA subscriber instantly. Okay, one more piece of solder. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is what's going to happen to the yellow ochre when you heat it. So let's turn on the torch and just start slowly heating the piece. Now, of course, the flux needs to dry out a little bit too, because otherwise it'll pop off the solder. Now you can see how the yellow ochre turned black. Perfectly all right. That's going to happen no matter what. So as I heat the piece of copper, what should happen is the solder should flow in the areas that are covered in flux and not flow into the areas covered with the yellow ochre. See, just like that. Remember, solder loves heat, so I can kind of guide the solder by just aiming it directionally. Now, when you're done, all you need to do, of course, with any operation is quench it. And you can see that there's a lot of the yellow ochre residue. Now it looks red on your surface. No problem. This is a completely inert material that won't do anything to anything in your pickle pot. It should just fall right off in the pickle pot. If it doesn't, it'll come right off with brass brushing. If you like this video, be sure to check out our other videos on our OJA website or playlist. You can find it either at onlinejewelryacademy.com or here on YouTube on our homepage. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget, we're looking for fan funding and your support. Thanks for watching.